3. Hello, we are José Finat, Marco Gambardella, and Guillermo Perinat, and we're going to do a presentation about Matthew Boulton, one of the key influential figures of the Industrial Revolution. So, okay, my colleague Pepe will start with giving the context of where Matthew Boulton was raised and his environment.
Hello. As Guillermo was saying, I'll be speaking about the general situation around Matthew Boulton. When he was born, George Ludwig was the King of England since August 1st of 1714, the first British monarch of the House Hanover. Britain at this time was prosperous and already leading the European and imperial power. Abroad, Britain's involvement in the War of the Spanish Succession had been brought to satisfactory conclusion by the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713. Britain had acquired new colonies in Gibraltar, Minorca, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Hudson's Bay, as well as trading concessions in Spanish New World. By contrast, Britain's rivals, France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic, were left weakened or were by the conflict. It took France a decade to recover, and Spain and Holland were unable to reverse their military and economic decline. As a result, Britain was able to remain aloof from a war on the continent for a quarter of a century after Hanoverian succession. And this proctorial peace was to be crucial to the new dynasty's survival and success. Old beliefs and superstitions engineered on there elsewhere and often into the late 19th century, although the Parliament repealed the laws against witchcraft in 1730. For example, many men and women, and not just illiterate, continue to believe in its power. I will next talk about economy. Britain's ability to pay off war in this scale demonstrated the extent of its wealth. Agriculture was still the bedrock of the economy, but trade was increasing, and more men and women were employed in the industry in Britain than anywhere else in the European nation. Wealth, however, was unequally distributed, with almost a third of the national income belonging to only 5% of the population. The center of this commercial culture was the city of London. As the only real national metropolis, London was unique in its size, multiplicity of factions. By 1750, it contained more than 650,000 citizens. 1 in every 10 British citizens lived in London. By contrast, only 1 in 80 citizens lived in Madrid, the capital of Spain. London was different. It was not only the location of the court and of the parliament, but also the nation's chief port, its financial center, and the home of printing industry. It was also the hub of its communications network. Next, I'll be talking about developments. Increased mobility was made possible by the revolution in communications. In the earlier 18th century, long-distance travel was rare, and the idea of long-distance travel for pleasure was a contradiction in terms. London's first daily newspaper appeared in 1702. By 1760, it had 4 dailies and 6 tri-weekly evening papers that circulated around the country, at large as well as the capital. By 1760, more than 9 million newspapers were sold in Britain every year. By 1770, the population was about 8.3 million. By 1821, it was about 14.2 million. By the latter date, it is estimated that 60% of Britain's population was 25 years of age or below. At last, I'll be talking about the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Revolution, Britain was by far the most industrialized state in the world. And because of that, its economic growth accelerated the last third of the 18th century. We have also said that we can't deny the dark side of industrialization. The conditions of work were often brutal, particularly for the young. Industrial safety was minimal, and environmental pollution and unguarded machines led to horrific injuries. Mechanization ruined the livelihoods of some skilled craftsmen, most notably handloom weavers. Nonetheless, it probably, without industrialization, the social cost of rapid population growth in Britain would have been far greater. I'll let the word to my colleague Marco next.
Thank you, Jose. Now talking about personal skill and characteristics, Matthew Boulton was born 3 September 1728 in Birmingham and died 17 August 1809. He was an English manufacturer and engineer who financed and introduced James Watt steam engine. He is seen as one of the best innovators in his epoch, that was one of the Illuminism. After he had inheritance from his father, the factory, tried to expand it in 1762. In fact, Boulton built a saw manufacture near Birmingham. The factory started producing small metal articles such as gilt, silver buttons, and buckle. Then he started also to sell vases with hormolu, but in the 1888, he started, thanks to the steam engine, he started to produce coinage in the saw mint that was inside the saw manufactured, and started to work for the government, or it means for the Royal Mint, where they produced coins. In 1766, Matthew Boulton moved his family to Soho House, that was close to the factory. It was a modest place, but it where like started the idea. In fact, there he transformed the house in something of a show house where he could show off his ways to prospective customer, and where he could entertain wealthy and influential people. And he was supported by his daughter, Anne. Well, in the house, they meet also with the lunar societies, where they share their ideas and thoughts with the best minds in that epoch. Now I'm gonna pass the word to my colleague Guillermo.
Okay, thanks, Marco. So I'm going to talk about Matthew Boulton's and James Watt relationship, which particularly marked both individuals' careers. So their business relationship can be considered as one of the first modern business partnerships. They basically needed each other, making their skills combined have an exponential effect, which launched them to become the key leading figures of the Industrial Revolution. Their steam engine essentially replaced horses and water wheels as the main source of power at the time. Watt was an inventor and mechanical engineer, while Boulton was a manufacturer with an entrepreneurial vision. They met at the right place at the right time, as many disruptive businesses are made. Boulton had a big success with his Soho manufactory, but wanted to increase the power of his steam engines for higher production, while James was already improving the original design of the steam engine. So it was the perfect timing. They made a partnership where Boulton funded Watt's investigation, who soon came up with a patent of the improved steam engine. They then started selling these engines for myriad uses around the world. Their partnership proves our point and thesis of the report of how disruptive businesses depend highly on time. And now my colleague Marco will continue with some interesting facts.
Yeah. Matthew Boulton was considered one of the best entrepreneurs in his epoch, also because he tried to have a different relationship, different business relationship. Another very important relationship was the one, the partnership with John Fothergill in 1762. Fothergill was a well-educated man and traveled a lot throughout Europe, and the opportunity to side some part of the European market must have seemed a totally logical move to make. In fact, Boulton was always quick to find a new market for his goods. The partnership lasted 20 years until Fothergill died, but it was very important for him. In fact, Matthew Boulton seems to have been a man unafraid to secure by one means or another that which he wanted. In fact, he wanted an assay office in Birmingham. It was costly and inconvenient for him to have to send his goods to London or Chester to have his goods hallmarked. One of his biggest concerns was letting the goods travel to London, to the London markets where others could rip off his design. He saw that without an assay office in Birmingham itself, he would lose control of his market, and this he was not prepared to do. He went to Parliament and positioned for a Birmingham assay office to be established. This was no mere feat. Opposition from the other assay office was fierce, and they would lose the business from the Midlands, and so fought hard to oppose such a move. Boulton, however, succeeded in getting not only a Birmingham assay office approved, but a Sheffield one as well. In that one move, Matthew Boulton ensured the success of the Midlands industrial metal manufacturing revolution. And this is why it became so much important also for creating the Soho manufacturer, where he started to produce the coin. After that, in the beginning of the 18, more of the coin were found false. Then he retired in the starting 18 and died in the 1809. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation.